Ride Finders, Mr. O'Keefe.
Here.
GRTC, Ms. Robinson. Mr. Robinson. VDOT, Ms. Sidemock.
Here.
And Mr. Scheid.
Here as well.
Perfect. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Sarah Keel.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Hope we get a little warmed up this week. Get out of the freezing cold winter weather. We'll go on to item number 3, consideration of amendments to the meeting agenda. Are there any amendments that anyone would like to suggest? All right, if none, then we'll go ahead to item 4, approval of the December 9th TAC meeting minutes. Any corrections to the minutes or any motions? Yes, Sarah?
I'm sorry, are we just doing a voice vote for the minutes?
Do we need a motion to approve? Then we can do a
Sure.
voice vote.
Sharon Smidler, Henrico, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
John O'Keefe, I'll second.
Thank you, John. All right, then, all those approved of the December 9th minutes, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the minutes are approved from December 9th. And we'll go ahead and look and see if we have any, we'll open the public comment period. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
We do not on our end, and we did not receive any public commentary ahead of time.
All right, thank you. I have no report to give, so we'll go ahead and move into item 7, the fiscal year 26 Unified Planning Work Program, mid-year update and amendment, which is in page 9 of your packet. Mr. Miles Bushing will give us a presentation on that for an action vote.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, good morning, everyone. This item is a proposed update to the UPWP for this fiscal year. Just as a reminder, I think most of you already know this, but the UPWP is essentially the budget and also the work plan for the MPO for the year. It lays out all the projects that we are working on, all the different studies we want to complete, and it puts funding towards each of those. And in that role, it also serves as our grant application for the state and federal money that go into the program. When we build the budget, just like all of your local budgets, we build that in the spring. And so there's an expected revenues for the upcoming fiscal year, as well as a forecast of carryover funding. So funding that we won't have spent by the end of the previous fiscal year that would move into the new fiscal year. And we adopted this UPWP in May of 2025. So the proposed revisions are really to cover 3 items. One is to reconcile the actual carryover compared to the forecast. The second is to include a major new grant funding source, which is the prioritization process pilot, which we'll talk a little bit about. And then the third piece is a slight redistribution between program areas. So the first one I mentioned was the 5303 carryover. So basically the way that the 5303 funding works is it is provided to the MPO with an 18-month period of performance. As our UPWP only covers 12 months, anything that isn't expended at the end of that can be carried over into the first half of the next fiscal year. And so those unexpended funds are then used to complete the first set of projects. This all happens because the MPO is continuous and the work is really flowing from one year to the next. It doesn't really have a clean break necessarily. And our estimate was high on the forecast for this year by about $52,000. So we need to adjust that amount in this amendment process. The second piece of this is the PPPP. We're calling it the P-Quad grant. It's the Prioritization Process Pilot Program from Federal Highways. And we received a grant for just under $1.5 million. That's 100% federally funded. And we obligated those funds back in September. So we've gotten started on the work. This is a multi-year project, but Federal Highways is recommending that we include it in the UPWP. And so we're trying to do that now for the work that will be completed in this fiscal year. And basically what this grant is going to do is allow us to revamp our project prioritization process, how we're scoring projects, evaluating them. I know we go through this regularly with CVTA, with the LRTP, and then with our funding cycles. But basically, this is going to allow us to incorporate scenario planning. So we'll be a little bit more holistic, able to look at multidisciplinary impacts of projects and investment scenarios, as well as multiple different futures. It'll allow us to dive deeper into life cycle cost accounting. So looking at the cost of operations and maintenance of the system over the life of a project. It'll also allow us to get to a more monetized version of ROI. So instead of a benefit score of 1 to 100 normalized by a cost, it'll actually allow us to monetize those benefits and then compare those to the costs over the life cycle. So the goal of all of this is to provide more transparency and also allow us to look at the projects in a broader lens. And so this is the proposed summary of the budget redistribution. So in short, what we're doing, we're taking $12,000 from the outreach and engagement bucket and moving it to the housing and economy bucket to give us a little extra funding for the balance of the fiscal year. We are taking out the surplus funding for, or excuse me, the overestimated carryover funding from the transit and passenger rail line item. So this is all 5303 funding, and that line item is also all 5303. The bigger part of the rationale there is that we also have the transit access plan underway. So this is our efforts to look at zero fare, look at how we can continue and how best to approach fares broadly across the region. So yes, looking at GRTC, but looking at our other partners across the region as well. And that, as you can see, has a larger budget already and is taking up most of our time in the transit dedicated space already. On that line item, we are increasing it by $200, and that's really to reflect that the award was, we'd originally submitted thinking it would be $250,000, and so we were slightly above that, but it actually came in at $250 and $700, so we're just matching those numbers up. And then the final part, which you'll see down here, is we are adding $580,000 for the prioritization process pilot. In your agenda packets, there was the draft task page for that project. But essentially, it's the first two phases of the project that are underway right now. So looking at the literature review and understanding the approaches that have been done and where our gaps are, and then also beginning the methodology development so that we can come up with a way to actually implement some of those best practices in ROI calculations. So on the whole, this is adding more money to the UPWP with some slight shifts in between buckets, but we are removing the high carryover that we had expected. So that's the summary. What we're requesting today from TAC is to recommend approval of these proposed revisions. And then what we can do is prepare the detailed breakdown of the 5303 versus PL splits to take to the policy board for their final approval. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Miles. Are there any questions from the members on this proposal? Don't see any raised hands. If not, then we could entertain a motion.
So
This is
moved.
Naomi. Oh, thanks, Wood. And I'll second that. Naomi.
Okay, so we had a motion by Wood and a second by Naomi. All right, Sarah Keel, did you want to do a voice vote on that?
Yes, we can just do a full voice vote.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Very good, thank you. Then that will be approved with a recommendation of approval. All right, then we'll move on to item number 8, the Smart Scale Round 7 project list. Mr. Bushing?
Sure. Thank you again, Madam Chair. So this item is our regional candidates for Smart Scale Round 7. So just as a reminder to everyone, Smart Scale is the principal funding program for transportation improvements. It's the biggest competitive process we go through. And it's really one call for projects for 2 separate programs. So there's the district grant program and the high priority projects. And the Rrtpo is eligible to submit projects just for the high priority pot. So we don't compete in the district grant program. That's just localities. And so, as you'll recall, we called for projects and conducted a screening. So we screened against the LRTP, whether the project was included or consistent with the LRTP, whether it appeared to meet the eligibility criteria for high priority projects. We also looked at available leverage, the readiness gates requirements, really had the project already gone through Smart Scale before? Do we think that it'll be able to meet those gates? And then VTrans, trying to make sure that there was a need that we could see that was consistent with the proposal. And so we received 16 proposals for candidate projects. Not all of them appeared to be eligible for high priority. The biggest issue that we saw was projects that weren't coming out of a state study that came from like a local study or an MPO study are required to be regionally significant, which in general means adding either new like BRT routes or new capacity. And not all of the projects appeared to meet those requirements. But we do have up to 12 pre-applications and 10 full applications for the MPO. So in your agenda packets, we had a summary of the screening. So for each project, there was a project title, a general description of the improvements with a kind of conceptual drawing, or in the case of interchanges, a big circle around the interchange. And then an overview of sort of the screening process, the Connect RVA requirements, the high priority project eligibility, and any leverage that would be brought. And so from that process, we developed a recommended list. So these are sorted by who had submitted the request. So from Richmond, we have Walmsley Boulevard Extension, Belvedere Interchange, and the Richmond Layover Facility. Henrico, we had 4 interchanges, West Broad, Parham, Bryan Park, and Gaskins. And in Chesterfield, we had Willis and 360 Chippenham, which is a total of 9 projects, meaning we still have 3 slots available for pre-applications. We had 4 projects that didn't appear specifically listed in the constrained long-range plan, but do appear to be consistent with the intent of the plan, but might require an amendment down the road. And that was the Route 10 improvements project, US 301 improvements, Norfolk Street Bridge, and Woolridge intersection. And so what we're asking today from the TAC is to recommend a set of projects for the pre-application cycle. The other thing, and I've received a couple of questions about this, is in recent rounds, TAC has also recommended projects for Plan RVA. And the challenge that we noted was, as I said, there were several projects that didn't appear to be eligible for high priority from the only 16 that we received. So we don't have enough candidates to fill a Plan RVA list from what has been submitted. And so what we'd like input from TAC on is whether we go with, say, 10 pre-apps and don't worry about using the extra pre-app slots on the Rrtpo side to get some slots for the Plan RVA side, or if we have an abbreviated follow-up call for projects for the Plan RVA side to bring back to TAC next month. So the pre-apps open in March, as you all know. So that would be pretty tight, March 10th, and then we'd have to have it closed by the end of the month. But that's sort of the 2 options that staff has been able to identify. So with that, I'd like to open this up for questions or discussion, Madam Chair, and I can go back to the recommended project list if that's helpful.
Great, Miles. Thank you. So yeah, let's have a discussion about how we want to do the pre-apps or bring this to further discussion next month. Any comments, suggestions? Yes, Sharon, I see your hand up.
Hi, Miles, if you could change the screen to the project, thank you. On the US 301 improvements, was that the pipeline project, or is that in the Henrico one, just north of the city, north of Azalea?
Yes, that was the pipeline study, I believe.
Okay, I like the idea, but I'm open to others' input, of course, is using like the 10 applications, because right now there's 9 listed. And then how many do we get for Plan RVA? Do we get 3 full applications? And using the other 3 for like Plan RVA applications, unless other people have more they would like us to consider. How many application spots do we have for Plan RVA?
I believe it's 5 pre-apps and 4 full apps.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was thinking was maybe use 10 applications for TPO and try to use the 4 applications for PDC with the ones on this list. Henrico would like to see if we could use the Chamberlain pipeline, the US 301, as a PDC spot, if there aren't other projects for consideration.
Thank you, Sharon. I think JJ had his hand up next.
Yeah, good morning. We had originally put forward the Woolridge intersection project, and based on recent public involvement, we don't think it's ready to move forward. And so similarly to what Sharon recommended for those additional 4 projects, we would like to have them considered for the PDC, and also have to replace that Woolridge intersection project with a second Route 10 improvement project coming out of the STAR study that VDOT is doing currently as well.
Thank you, JJ. Daniel Wagner.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Definitely, I think the city of Richmond agrees with Ms. Meidler's approach, trying to make the most of the available slots. I think we can, again, as Ms. Meidler mentioned, if we want to make a couple of tactful switches based on localities' preferences, that's fine. But if we can fit all of these projects in with the available slots, we'd love to move forward with that.
Thank you, Daniel. Joseph Badunas.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Miles, really, maybe 2 things. First, can you just refresh me? Where did these projects come from?
Yes, we had a call for projects, I believe it was in December, and there was a submittal form that was sent out to the TAC via email.
Right. Okay. And second question, maybe this might be for Daniel, but I'm kind of surprised that Mayo Bridge is not listed among these. I mean, it's been talked about quite a bit. I know it's in need of funding. I think it's in need of significant funding. Either Daniel, maybe that's for Daniel.
Yeah, great question, Joe. We need a little bit more time to approach that, and we think, hey, we're going back and forth with our Planning Commission and UDC right now, Urban Design Committee, just to make sure we solidify that design. But I think there's a lot of good opportunities that we have at the moment in order to make sure that gets funded. But at the moment, we don't need it to be in this set of slots for the TPO.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions? Okay, so it sounds like, Mr. Bush, and we have maybe a consensus with the amount of applications that we want to allow. there's no further discussion, will we like to make a recommendation? Anyone move to make a recommendation? JJ, you have another question?
I was going to make the motion, but I was going to ask if I needed to include anything to have that second Route 10 project replace the Woolridge project.
Good question, Miles. Do you want to address that or?
Yeah, I mean, if TAC is fine with it, if we include it in the motion, I think we're okay with that. As most of you know, on the projects where the localities are comfortable, we have historically allowed you to help develop the pre-apps and the applications rather than TPO staff taking the lead in the actual application process. So I think we're happy to work with you on putting that one in, JJ.
So then I'll make a motion to recommend the Smart Scale Round 7 regional candidate list with swapping out the Woolridge project with another Route 10 project.
Second.
And Madam Chair, can I clarify the motion? The motion as presented would be to take these that are listed, the 9 that are listed as the TPO applications and use those other 4 as the PDC applications?
Is that the intent with your motion, JJ?
Yes.
Thank you. And did we have a second on that motion?
Yes, second.
Thank you, Daniel. All right. With the motion in place, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, the motion carries. And I think I seen Sharon Smiler's hand up. Did you have a question, Sharon?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify, I guess, if anybody, since then there'd be one still open spot. Henrico doesn't have anything more, but if any localities, I agree with the 9 and then the other 4 with Plan RVA, but I guess Miles, if any other localities happen to have another application they're interested in, I guess if they could let you know or as soon as possible, if it would be a good fit, just since there is one empty open slot available.
Yes, if anyone does have anything else and they send it over, we can make sure to bring that back to TAC at the next meeting. And as an update item of, hey, we were able to find one more application to fill the slots.
And I did want to share one more thing. As our localities get ready to submit our own smart scale applications, usually TPO endorses those and has a separate motion. But then just a reminder to all the TAC members, if your project overlays into another locality, you would need a letter of support from that locality as well. So we'll all need to start coordinating early so we can make sure that happens with our projects, to coordinate with our adjacent localities if our smart scale projects touch those localities. Just a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, we certainly want to get that other spot filled if we can find a project that would qualify. Thanks for the reminder for supporting each locality's efforts. All right, then if there's nothing further on that, we'll go ahead and move to item number 9, the 2024-27 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment and the existing projects. Will Heller will give us a presentation on that.
All right, thank you so much. Let me get my screen. Okay. All right, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. I have several tip amendments for y'all today, beginning with 4 existing projects. So these amendment requests are coming from both DRPT and VDOT. VDOT is asking to amend the tip to update funding for 3 existing projects, and DRPT is asking to amend the tip to update funding for 1. So VDOT's existing projects are for the I-64 westbound exit 181 Improve Interchange Configuration Project, the second phase of the I-95 Route 10 Interchange Improvement Project, and the I-64 at North Gayton Interchange Project. The I-64 westbound exit 181 project involves interstate access modifications. So current conditions along this stretch of Parham Road between Mayland Drive and the eastbound I-64 off-ramp have led to safety and operational concerns, including congestion and a pattern of rear end and angle collisions. This amendment updates project funding and adds additional phases of the project to our TIP. Here we have the TIP block from VDOT. And so to save a little bit of time this morning, I've combined these slides for the next two projects because they're each requesting the same change to our TIP. So the I-64 at North Gayton Road Interchange Project and the second phase of the I-95 Route 10 Interchange Improvement Project both seek to amend the TIP to adjust funding in FY27 for each of the project's respective right-of-way phases and to satisfy their NEPA requirements. So here's the first TIP block for the I-95 Route 10 Interchange Improvement and the TIP block for the I-64 at North Gayton Road Interchange Project. So swapping now from VDOT to DRPT, I have our final existing project for today, the RideFinders Regional Air Pollution Reduction Program. So this project is a consolidation of two programs, the RideFinders Air Reduction Program and the City of Richmond's Employee Trip Reduction Program. The goal of this project is to develop diverse TDM programs to reduce single occupancy vehicle commuter trips and therefore alleviating traffic congestion and enhancing air quality. The TIP amendment being requested would update funding to reflect the annual $500,000 operational support provided to RideFinders, as well as to reflect the $2 million awarded to pilot the Regional Air Pollution Reduction Program. And here we have the TIP block given to us by DRPT. And our request today is that the TAC recommend approval of the proposed TIP amendments as requested by both VDOT and DRPT. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Will.
This is Sharon Smidler. I make a motion to approve the 3 TIP amendments.
Thank you, Sharon. Do we have a second?
John O'Keefe, I'll second.
Thank you, John. So if there's no further discussion, can we have a motion, a voice vote to approve? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the motion is approved. And thank you. We'll move on to item number 10, which is the same Transportation Improvement Program amendment, but with the new projects. Will Heller.
All right, thank you again. So moving right along. These amendments are both being requested by VDOT, and they will add 2 new projects to our TIP. So we have the Route 288 southbound hard surface running lane project and the Port of Virginia Interchange Commerce Road Streetscape project. So the first of the new projects I'll dive into is the Route 288 southbound hard shoulder running lane project. This project is intended to help reduce congestion during peak afternoon hours, and it involves reconstructing the southbound shoulder between the on-ramp at West Creek Parkway and the off-ramp at Route 711. In addition to the reconstructed shoulder, the project also involves intelligent transportation systems improvements, installing gantries with explanatory signage, and constructing emergency pull-offs for disabled vehicles while the HSR is in use. Here we have the TIP block highlighting the changes from VDOT. And the last project I have for y'all today is the Port of Virginia Interchange Commerce Road Streetscape project. This project involves multiple improvements along a 0.4-mile stretch of Commerce Road between Bell's Access Road and Walmsley Boulevard / I-95 and the Commerce Road Walmsley Boulevard I-95 interchange. So improvements planned between Bell's Access Road and Walmsley Boulevard include new turning lanes, pedestrian and transit access improvements, and crossing accommodations at 2 existing interchanges and 3 transit stops, and the construction of a 5-foot wide sidewalk with the inclusion of a 4-foot wide buffer. And the improvements planned for the Commerce Road and Walmsley Boulevard I-95 interchange include pedestrian access improvements and crossing accommodations, improved lane configurations, and a multi-lane roundabout. In addition to these changes, the project also has access management improvements through consolidating commercial entrances and removing 2 and relocating 1 entrance further away from the Commerce Road Walmsley Boulevard intersection. So here we have the TIP block highlighting funds from VDOT. And our request today is that the TAC recommends approval of the proposed tip amendment as requested by VDOT. Again, if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Will. Okay, I think I've got, oh, that's just Will giving us a chat box item there to look at. Amy Inman, you have your hand up?
Well, great, thank you, Sherry. I was just curious, when will the southbound shoulder running lane project begin? I don't see a date. I mean, it says fiscal year 26 and 27. So is it underway or what's happening with this project? And what happened with the northbound? Is it
I
moving?
can jump in real quick about the southbound hard shoulder running. So this is one of the projects that the Commonwealth Transportation Board recently supported for funding.
Okay.
So when they identified additional funds, they looked at past smart scale applications and provided funding for them. So that's the case for this one. So this one hasn't started yet. This one's just being added to the tip in order to get started. It'll take me a second to pull up the UPC and check the start date on that one. And then which other project are you
Well, I was
interested
just
in?
wondering, I mean, you can send it to me offline, Naomi. I'd
Great.
appreciate that. You have to do it right here, but I was just curious what's going on with those projects. And does this fully
Right.
fund this project now, this funding?
Yeah, this section of the southbound hard shoulder is
Yeah.
fully funded through the smart scale funding. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Any other questions? All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll take.
Chair Adams.
Yes, Sharon.
I think Mr. Weaver had a question in the chat.
Okay, let's just take a look at that. So, let's see if I can find it.
Madam Chair, I can read it.
Can you read it?
It says, is the Route 288 shoulder running lane similar to what's on I-264 in Virginia Beach, i.e. it's a normal shoulder most of the time, but can be used as a travel lane during certain times?
Oh, like if there's a hurricane evacuation or something?
I think they use it for transit bus access.
I can speak to that real quick, given it's in Goochland. So both the north and southbound hard shoulder lanes are very similar to, I think there's one in the Virginia Beach area and also in Northern Virginia somewhere. And yes, it's a shoulder, 9 out of the 12 hours of daytime. And then for those 3 peak hours or so, it's going to be a travel lane. Identified back as far as, I think, 2018 in a 288 star study. So we're happy to see that moving forward. And Amy, to your question about the northbound, that one I think is in PE now, significantly ahead of the southbound.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just curious how they're going to do that over the bridge.
It's been a long discussion point.
Well, I'm sure it has been. And I think, Madam Chair, or maybe Miles, it might be worthwhile having a presentation by VDOT on that. I think it's just, that bridge is very curious in my mind as to how they're going to do that. And considering how much we all travel that on a regular basis, I'm really curious as to what they're doing with that. So that would be helpful.
Noted, and we can coordinate with VDOT when there's a good time to update on that one.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Good question, Amy. Thank you for considering, giving us an update on that from VDOT. So with that said, do we want to go ahead and make a motion to approve this new project's amendment? Or do we want to wait for a presentation from VDOT on this one project? How would we like to proceed on that?
I'll make a motion that they're approved as presented.
Sharon's my second.
Thank you, Austin and Sharon. All right, then we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Very well, we'll have approval of this new tip amendment with the new projects, and we'll make a note to do a presentation on with VDOT on that question that Amy had. All right, then we'll move along to item number 11, which is the Transportation Improvement Program project list for the 2027 through fiscal year 30. We'll get a presentation from Carrie Wagerhauser.
Hi, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hi, and thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, TAC. My name is Carrie Wagenhauser, and I'm here to talk to you about the project list we've received from DRPT and VDOT. As you guys know, the TIP Transportation Improvement Project is federally required regional list of priority transportation projects. It covers highway, transit, bike ped, rail, airport access, and freight projects. Essentially all federally funded or regionally significant project investments. The TIP is an obligation document from FHWA and FTA commitment to reimbursing state or eligible costs once a project phase is authorized. Each project must clearly outline its description, total cost, federal funding amounts, and project administrator. All Virginia MPOs are incorporated into a statewide transportation improvement program called STIP. Any TIP updates must be entered into the STIP before submission to FHWA or FTA for review and acceptance. These projects, once approved, will be included in the draft TIP, which will then turn into a finalized version of the TIP, and then the associated draft air quality and conformity determination report. The project list can be found in your agenda packet. Project lists show which projects are eligible and included in the TIP. These projects have been reviewed by locality, state agencies, and Plan RVA staff to ensure accuracy and readiness. Collectively, these projects are designed to support and advance the region's future transportation goals and needs. These projects were received on Friday, February 13th, 2026. They are not included in your agenda packet. They were found to be left off the project list and regionally significant, thus must be included in the TIP project list. Note, these are not federally funded. The requested action is that TAC recommends approval for the project list as submitted by VDOT and DRPT. The projects in the orphan 8-hour ozone maintenance area will be included in the conformity review, and the ICG meeting, sorry, is scheduled on March 10th before the TAC meeting.
Thank you, Carrie. Did anyone want to take a look at those additional projects that you had added?
Carrie, can you pull that slide back up? And Madam Chair, if I can address those.
Yes, of course.
So basically, the requirements for the TIP are that we have to show all federal funding, as well as any projects which were potentially regionally significant, regardless of the funding source. And so these three projects were submitted by Chesterfield back in the fall, and they don't have any federal dollars on them. However, with review and consultation with VDOT, we've determined that those three are likely to be regionally significant and will need to be included separately. So it's the Powhite Parkway extension, Route 360 widening, and then Woolridge Road widening. So these are the TIP blocks as proposed, but they're basically local projects that we're including for conformity purposes only.
Thank you for that. Any questions from the members? Any discussion? All right, with no further comments or I don't see any hands raised, so we'll go ahead and take a motion.
Just real quick, I was reviewing the project list. It might be a good idea to double check the format of the DRPT projects to include the STIP IDs on the tables.
Yes, thank you, Wood.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
I figured that was an easy change, yeah.
Very good. So do we want to make a motion with that one correction?
So moved.
Thank you, Daniel.
This is JJ. I'll second.
Thank you, JJ. All those in favor with the noted correction to add the STIP IDs, you can say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Very well. That is an action item for a favorable recommendation. We'll move on to item number 12, flexible regional funding for existing project requests on page 33 of our packet. Carrie, you want to give us a presentation on that?
Again, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Carrie Wagenhauser, and I'm here today to present the existing projects with some details about each of the existing projects we have for our RS2P, CMAQ, and CRP funding. All additional funding has been requested and must be approved to be applied to each specific project. So let's get started. The original funding request for this project was submitted in 2019. Since then, quarter changes, post-COVID inflation, and scope refinements have increased the requested TPO funding by about $1.3 million. This change would also require policy board approval. Key drivers include safety and mobility enhancements, relocation of the Kings Road signal to Galena Avenue with pedestrian signals, supported safe crossings of Route 1 identified in Chesterfield's 2022 pedestrian crossing study. Transit access improvements, extension of bike ped facilities on the west side of Route 1 to improve connectivity to GRTC bus stops. Inflation and scope adjustments, unit prices increased since 2019 and additional sidewalk/shared path. Despite higher TPO costs, the project remains strategically aligned with regional mobility and safety goals. The team has demonstrated fiscal responsibility by refining the scope, optimizing design to deliver critical pedestrian and transit improvements. In lieu of additional external funds, these cost-saving measures make the initiative feasible. We plan to move forward with funding. The original funding allocation for this Henrico County project was based on prior estimates. However, unanticipated factors have increased the requested TPO funding need by about $1 million. The requested funding changes will also require policy board approval. Key drivers include traffic coordination requirements, additional costs due to unexpected maintenance of traffic, updates to third-party right-of-way coordination, including adjustments related to the Belmont Golf Course net. Inflation and unit price increases, market-driven cost escalation since the initial estimate impacting construction materials and labor rates. Despite the higher TPO share, the project remains aligned with regional mobility and safety objectives. The team has demonstrated fiscal responsibility by refining the scope, leveraging available CMAQ CRP funds in lieu of external funding sources. These adjustments ensure project feasibility, and we plan to move forward with funding. The original funding allocation for this Richmond City project has been revised due to scope changes. The administrative requirements have increased the requested funding by about $7 million. However, the TPO is only prepared to partially fund this need with $3 million. This funding would also require policy board approval. Key drivers include project restart and administrative delays. Although the phase was initially designed to 60%, VDOT requested treating this as a new project requiring a full start and additional time to secure a consultant. Funding strategy and shortfall. The city received $2 million in GO bonds for FY29 and plans to seek an additional $2 million in FY30. Despite these efforts, the project remains short by $7 million, which we aim to cover through RSTP funds in FY28 through 2030. Despite the funding gap, the project remains strategically aligned with regional mobility and safety goals. The team is actively pursuing supplemental funding and implementing measures to ensure feasibility. These efforts will allow us to move forward with partial funding while Richmond continues to secure additional resources. The original funding allocation for this Henrico project has been revised due to delays in design development and approval. The requests have increased by about $1 million. This change in funding will also require policy board approval. Key drivers include design approval delays, extended timelines for project design improvement, and securing design approval have impacted cost projections and scheduling. Current funding includes RSTP and local contributions. The requested funds aim to replace a portion of local contributions to maintain project feasibility. Despite the timeline adjustments, this project remains aligned with regional goals. The requested funds will offset a portion of the local costs deferred last year. Original funding allocation for this Henrico County project has been adjusted due to minor cost increases and have been increased due to requested funding dollars by about $200,000. Right-of-way phase adjustments, additional costs associated with right-of-way activities and administrative requirements during project development. Funding strategy. The TPO will cover the full deficit, leveraging RSTP funds to maintain project progress and ensure timely delivery. Despite the cost increase, the project remains aligned with regional priorities. The team has demonstrated fiscal responsibility and is prepared to move forward with the funding to keep the initiative on schedule. Original funding allocation for this Chesterfield County project has been revised due to significant cost increases. The increase in requested funding is about $5 million. The change will require policy board approval. Funding strategy and shortfall. Current funding sources include CRP and CMAQ, but the TPO will not cover the full deficit. The project faces a shortfall of about $3 million. Additional funding will be required to proceed. Despite the higher cost, the project remains aligned with regional mobility and safety priorities. The team is pursuing supplemental funding and implementing measures to ensure feasibility. These efforts will allow us to move forward with partial funding. This request was deferred last year. Henrico County, the original funding for this Henrico County project has been revised due to the scheduled delays due to utility relocations, plan revisions, and NEPA reevaluation, have increased the requested funding by about $4 million. The change in funding would also require board approval. Key drivers include construction phase adjustments, schedule delays due to utility relocations, plan revisions, and NEPA reevaluation. Funding strategy and shortfall. Current funding sources include RSTP. The TPO will not cover the full deficit. Additional funding will be necessary to close the gap and ensure timely delivery. Despite the cost increase, the project remains aligned with regional mobility and safety priorities. This will allow us to move forward with funding. This project was a pilot used to promote the regional transit usage. It was presented last year as a one-time request and with more potentially requested if successful. Staff does not have the outcomes yet, as the funding has just been added to the STIP now to understand the impacts of this funding and make on regional travel and cannot make a recommendation on the impact. The requested action is that the TAC would recommend approval for these projects as explained by staff. If there are any comments, questions, or concerns, please voice them now.
Thank you, Carrie. Daniel, you have a question?
I may have the same question as Naomi, actually. Sorry. Just curious about the mention on Hull Street Phase 3 about its needing to be treated as a new project. Could we get some clarity on that? I was not aware of that and trying to understand how that came about.
Sure. Madam Chair, I can address that. So that's actually the material that was submitted by the city. So when this application was originally submitted, this was phase 3 of a longer project that had been in studies for an extended period. And the initial application, the city's perspective was that it was already at 60% design as part of that broader, longer effort. But once this was funded, we had to start the project as if it were new, going through the federal process, which required some redesign. But these notes were directly what was submitted by the city. This wasn't staff's perspective on the project.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. Any other questions? Naomi?
Yes, just a similar comment because we saw this statement in the slides too. So we were taking a look internally and we spoke with our project coordinator, and maybe it sounds like what you're saying, Miles, is like that's maybe a statement related to this project, maybe like they may have resubmitted the statement, but it was an impact from back in the day potentially, because when we talked to the project coordinator, they seem to be under the understanding that this project is at 60% design, though it hasn't been scoped yet. And value engineering was just completed for this project. So I guess the statement is a little confusing to me too. And it looks like the project is still fully funded in the 6-year improvement program. So I'm not sure where this deficit request is coming from. That's just something that a little concern on our end, and I think we need more clarity on that.
Yes, Miles.
Yeah, just to address that, broadly speaking, a lot of the times when we receive requests for additional funding through the RSTP and CMAQ programs, the project cost estimate hasn't always been updated on the VDOT end. So it's a lot of times we get the information and then it comes through on like the NAPA later down the road. So with that, I think what we're trying to reflect is what we received from the city during the fall application window, which is basically showing this increase of almost $10 million to the total cost.
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? All right, with no other discussion, can we go ahead and take a motion to approve, or any other motions on this item?
Oops, I see hands raised.
Oh.
Go ahead, Naomi.
Sure. So this motion right now is like making that decision to give these projects more money. Okay. Yeah, I see Miles. I saw you nodding. So, okay. Appreciate it.
That's right.
And Madam Chair, can I ask
Yes,
one
Miles.
other piece of clarification? So I think in this, as Carrie presented, the recommendation would be to fully fund each of the requests except for the Hull Street, which due to the new waiver requirements, we have to find a category to meet those waiver requirements for projects exceeding a 50% cost increase. The other one that was not specifically coming with a recommendation was the Ride Finders request for an additional $2 million. So that is, I think, the item where we would hope to have some input and clarity from TAC. The intent on the action today is to be able for us to incorporate existing projects first into an allocation plan before we come back with the new projects, how far down the list we can get essentially with new projects. So any input that we could get in particular on the waiver item and the Ride Finders request would be very helpful before we take an action.
Thank you, Miles. Ms. Torres?
Sure. Good morning. I just want to provide, I guess, some additional metrics input related to the Ride Finders. Miles did note that the program, we have been working, or at least Ride Finders has been working on the effort to get the funding from CMAQ so that we can start the drawdowns related to the metrics for that program. So what GRTC has been doing has been able to kind of keep the program afloat. And then once we receive that, we will back reimburse for all of the ridership related to that. And the main metric was that we were anticipating at least 1.6 million trips associated with our FY24 numbers, which was about 10.4 million riders in FY24. And so of that, we had done a survey that about 1.6 of those were assumed based on the survey as mode shift. And our FY27 came in about 11.7 million riders. So we can assume that at least that 1.6 stayed and more with the mode shift. And we are projecting actually trending exactly the same today with the same ridership to date as was last year. So we're assuming still a growth even higher than that 1.6 beyond the 10.3 in FY24. So what we'll be doing is putting those metrics in to draw down on the mode shift assumption once are able to access the funds through ride finders. So it has been used actually beyond the original anticipation of the 1.6. So that is the request to continue that effort, to continue basically the incentive of the mode shift for those to use transit.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion or comments? So if there's no further discussion, can I get a motion?
I'll take a stab at a motion if you all don't mind. And, you know, if this motion dies, that's just fine. So I would like to take a motion to recommend approval of, you know, addressing the deficits of these projects and providing that 2 million to ride finders. I will say pertaining to the waiver for the Hall Street Road Phase 3, I'm hoping in this motion that we could take a look at that next month. If we can have a little more time to get a little more information about a little more detail on what's leading to this significant deficit, the significant shortfall, and the need for the waiver. I think that'd be really helpful. So that's my motion.
Sharon Smigler, second.
Thank you, Sharon. So with the motion that Naomi has presented to allow for the 2 million for Ride Finder and a waiver for additional review next month, and with a second from Sharon, can we get a voice vote from the members? All those in favor of that?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. That's a very good motion, Naomi, and thanks for offering to bring back some more additional information to us next month. I appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to item number 13, flexible regional funding for new project rankings. Carrie will give us an update on that.
Hi, I just wanted to check in and make sure everybody can still hear me and see my screen and all of that good stuff. Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's me, Carrie Wagenhauser, again, here with a slightly different project set for this discussion item. The workbook scores project the five parts: safety, mobility, access, economic development, and land use. Each part adds up to make the project's benefit. The cost benefit score is the benefit decided or divided by the money requested and then scaled up. Projects asking for less money and with a high benefit score often score far higher than those without. The study page uses points by goal to get the final score. These scorecards will then be used in developing the recommended allocations for the future TAC meeting when the budget is available. At this time, if you have any questions about the projects, please reach out to me or please discuss now. If anyone has anything they would like to discuss, please feel free. Also note that Plan RVA only has these details provided by the localities and agencies that submit these projects. Submitters are the experts on the projects.
Thank you, Carrie.
Mhm.
Any discussion of the information presented by Carrie? If none, then I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, there's
This
no
is just
action on this.
Oh, no action. I'm sorry.
You're
This is just
fine.
informational.
Yes.
Yes, Amy.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So Carrie, do we call you if we have a question? I just have a question about the bike share expansion of mobility hubs at $5 million.
Yes, you are more than welcome to call, email, contact me in any way. But again, the project submitters are the experts on their projects. So I believe the bike share is a Richmond project.
Daniel.
And Daniel's raising his hand.
Oh, good. Thanks, Daniel. Maybe you know. But go
Yes,
ahead, Daniel. Dollars for a bike share. I have serious questions about that.
Sure, I'm happy to discuss that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to item number 14, Regional Public Transportation Plan by GRTC. If we have someone who can speak to that today.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Hi, this is Scudder Wag, and I think Adrian is also here to speak a little bit with us. Adrian, did you want to start?
Sure. Good morning again. We are here to kind of update you on the efforts for our FY27 plan development, which is kind of continuity of what we've done in past years related to regional public transportation plan, with main priority being maintenance of effort, which I'll go over just as a quick highlight of what those numbers are this year. But we are actually taking I want to say a step back, more of a step forward, where we are bringing in Michael Baker and Associates and Jarrett Walker, and working very closely with Plan RVA. As we have since CVTA started, we have done several studies, we've done several pilots, and we now want to take all of that input, because a lot of the microtransit pilots were 3 years, but want to take all that input and all the input from all the surveys that happened in the region and look more closely kind of at the demand, as well as the priorities from all 9 jurisdictions, and develop a more detailed FY28, but also look at it kind of within the lens of a financial constraint, but also looking at alternative scenarios in terms of finances as we move forward. And I know I'm hitting a lot of the first slide once we get to it. But with that, I wanted to introduce Scudder Wag as well as Michelle Poirier, who will be leading us through this effort. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to both of them to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Adrian. Good morning. Pleasure to be here. As Adrian mentioned, we from the consulting side will be helping in particular with the fiscal year 2028 Regional Public Transportation Plan. I'm Scudder Wag, President and Principal at Jarrett Walker and Associates. Some of you may know me as and my colleague Michelle Hoyro. Michelle, if you want to say hello. We were very involved in the Richmond Transit network plan many years ago that redesigned the bus network within the city of Richmond, and it helped lead that effort. I also lived in Richmond for 12 years, but I'm now based in Arlington, Virginia. And my colleague Michelle, we're both with Jarrett Walker and Associates, working with Nick Britton and his team at Michael Baker to assist on this planning effort. So, excuse me, little cough. A little bit of history, financial context here about why we're taking part in this effort. GRTC has an obligation to develop a rolling 5-year plan of how to invest really all of its dollars, but in particular the regional transportation dollars. This is a DRPT requirement under the Transit Strategic Planning process that the agency has to undergo. GRTC developed its TSP a couple of years ago. It has to do an annual update process, and it has to do a big update every 5 years. This is in part to help update the TSP. In addition, the CVTA legislation that requires that there be an annual collaboration with the TPO on transit priorities and expenses using those CVTA dollars. And in the previous years and for fiscal year 27, that regional public transportation plan RPTP process has defined kind of the priorities as maintaining the effort of current services, which is where about $31 million has planned or is planned to go for fiscal year 27. Local capital matches, about $2 million in fiscal year 27, and then supporting some of these various regional studies that have been done in past years and are continuing. And so for fiscal year 27, GRTC intends and expects to have a kind of continuation of the recent past relatively simple and straightforward FY fiscal year plan for this RPTP process. Adrian, I don't know if you want to add to that, but that has been the kind of past process for the past few years of focusing on these priorities in that effort.
Exactly. Yeah. Just maintaining transit operations and their current kind of service efforts is the plan for FY27. We did do some expansion investment in the last year or so. Those were grant funded. And so right now we're kind of working on scenarios with our board on sustainability models as moving forward, and that will be input into this conversation as well. A lot of those expansion priorities in terms of fixed route were in Henrico County, and then of course you guys are familiar with the micro transit that's happened in some of the jurisdictions as well.
So that's the plan for FY27 is kind of continue the past practice, but for the fiscal year 28 plan to be completed by early next year, GRTC really wants to engage this TAC, the regional jurisdictions, to have a more cohesive plan of what the region's transit system should be looking like in the next 5 to 10 years. That is really grounded in clarity about what is fundable in the next 5 to 10 years. And so as part of that, we'll be working with GRTC on developing a range of financial scenarios based on demand and priorities, and also on funding, forecasts, and also incorporating the input from the previous studies and pilots that have been occurring in the last few years, and putting that into a process of helping to define what can be funded in the next 5 to 10 years, not just this very simplistic 1 year look, which has kind of been the past process as GRTC has adapted to this new CFTA funding scheme and system. One of the significant challenges that we've identified in the last couple of years is that transit operation costs have risen pretty significantly, in large part because wages have risen significantly. It has been a significant challenge across the industry, across the country, to hire and retain bus operators in particular. Most agencies, GRTC included, have responded to that challenge by significantly increasing wages. And that, plus a variety of other things like healthcare costs, insurance costs, et cetera, have really significantly increased the operating costs of transit in the past few years. So this plan will look very carefully at revenue predictions, transit priorities, and explore revenue alternatives for what could be done to meet all of the priorities that the region outlines through this process. So the major participants in this process are, of course, the regional bodies, Plan RVA. The reason we're here today is to engage with Plan RVA and all of the constituent jurisdictions that make that up. CVTA as one of the major funding partners. All of the jurisdictions that compose CVTA, Plan RVA, Henrico, Chesterfield, City of Richmond, Ashland, Goochland, New Kent, Charles City, Hanover, and Powhatan. We want you all to be involved and to help guide these priorities. And then the consultant support from our side, Jarrett Walker and Associates and Michael Baker International, will be here to help do a lot of the technical analysis and bring key choices and guide a lot of the process for you. Our expected timeline, we've just gotten underway with the kickoff internally with GRTC and Plan RVA in the last month. And right now we're, GRTC in particular is really focused on, from its side, developing that recommended 2027 maintenance of effort and capital match that will go into the FY27 plan that would come forward through to CVTA. So we expect that to come through in the next month or two. And then from the consultant side, we're beginning the effort of analyzing all of the existing transit services, looking at the ridership, productivity, the demand, potential demand and existing demand, across the system, the effectiveness and so on of the more recent services that have been implemented, and then also updating financial projections. We have worked with GRTC the past few years to help their board explore the financial projections. Some of you may have seen that work through your engagement with the GRTC board. We'll be updating a lot of that work to have the most recent financial projections of existing funding streams. And then over the summer, we will be developing some future transit scenarios. What could the transit system and service and investments look like in the next 5 to 10 years? And then we will take those scenarios out to the public for public consultation to get some input on priorities for what the region should be investing in. And in the fall, then we will select and refine one scenario to then become the recommended plan for the FY28 plan. And over the winter and then early 2027, define phasing for that plan. What could be done in which years over the next 5 to 10 years. And then by March 2027, we plan to be complete with the final plan delivered to GRTC, delivered to Plan RVA and the region to be adopted and approved. Critically, we want you all as representatives of the region to participate significantly in this effort. In the next month or two, and we want to engage you all in some small individual meetings with each jurisdiction or small couple of jurisdictions together, perhaps. First with technical staff, just to go over this timeline, go over some more details about particular priorities you've already identified. A second follow-up meeting with any interested executives higher up in your organization, or even elected officials. If you have elected officials who are particularly engaged in transit priorities, we'd want to meet with you and those representatives to get initial assessment of what are your jurisdiction's priorities for transit. And then the really significant effort we want to engage you in is in May or June, we will want to host what we call a core design retreat, which is where we will ask for some substantial time commitments to participate in a 3 to 4 day long effort to develop these scenarios that we want to take to the public. We are particularly going to ask for some significant time investment from the 3 central jurisdictions, Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield, but we will certainly want to ask for some time, perhaps a half a day or so from the rest of you across the region to come and participate in this collaborative effort to develop these scenarios. So we'll be following up in these small group meetings to talk about the timing of that effort to get your face-to-face involvement as we work on that. We anticipate some significant TAC involvement in selection of the scenario, the final recommended scenario in the fall, and then of course review of the draft plan and phasing in the winter and then the spring of next year. So that's just a quick overview of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve. We're just getting started and really wanted to just lay out what to expect from this process and to answer questions now so that none of you are surprised when we come calling you in the next month or so to get this underway. So happy to take questions, happy to expand.
Thank you, Scudder and Andrea. Any comments or questions from the members? Well, we look forward to helping you develop a plan moving forward. Amy, you have your hand up.
Great, thanks, Madam Chair. Adrian, I'm really curious. We've heard over the last, I guess, last several months, year, about your shortfall, right? And that we're hearing about your reduction of midday service and potentially other, maybe all day service. I think it would be really helpful, maybe prior to this or at some point, to really understand that. I know you all came to CVTA. I think it's understandable what's happening, but I think there's a lot more technical questions that we need to have answered, that maybe weren't really asked or addressed at the CVTA. And I really would, going back to Scudder's comment on the Richmond Transit Network plan that the city of Richmond initiated and led and implemented. I would really like to understand the changes that were made since then, right? So when we did the redesign, we had the 15-minute network that I think through COVID and other reasons, maybe that system has been fragmented. Now I think maybe we have some split services again, some split routes that are no longer one-seat rides that I think might be interesting to understand. So through this process, I would particularly like to understand what's happened to the system since we made that significant change and we went through that significant effort to make those changes, to have that frequent network all within the existing operating budget, right? And then now we're being told that, okay, we're having to cut the service, we're having to, fragment all these things or whatever you're doing. I just would like to have a better understanding. And the other piece I'd like to understand is what is the status of the microtransit service? It was, as you've noted, it was a 3-year, I think it was a grant funded for 3 years on a demonstration grant from DRPT. And I think that's something we need to understand now. What is happening with that? And how is that going to be funded going forward, given GRTC's funding shortfall? The other comment I just want to make is in New Kent and in Charles City, but I'm only speaking for New Kent, we have Bay Transit, as you're well aware, and we've already conducted our study that lays out what our future holds for rural and microtransit service. We've explored that with GRTC, and we understood that having two services, having GRTC try to come in and provide microtransit service, but not being able to provide the rural service was not something that really was going to make a lot of sense for our locality, given the fact that we're not really large enough to support two transit services, and that would be quite confusing to the public. And we also noted that GRTC was not able to contract with Bay Transit because they're union. So that presented a problem for having that, the demonstration grant flow through to pay for that service through Bay Transit to make it easier for our customers. So, we have elected to go forward with Bay Transit. We feel very strongly about that. But obviously we want to connect in and be good partners with GRTC. There's no trouble with that. But also the microtransit, the changes that you've made on the east side. And I think going from having the fixed route service, I believe you've replaced that now with microtransit service, makes it a little more challenging for us. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Adrian, but that's my understanding. Makes it a little more challenging to connect in to the overall network. But again, maybe I'm wrong on that. So anyway, those are just some comments that we'd like to make. And I think maybe having a kickoff meeting of sorts where we can just kind of have those technical discussions like you're talking about would be very helpful, just to kind of clear up any misunderstandings or understand what's going on with the existing service and funding would be really helpful. Thank you.
Address a couple of them. First, Amy, you just highlighted our whole scope, so thank you. All things that we want to address in this effort. I think we kind of left off the GRTC and Bay Transit, how we can work together complementary. Maybe there's a model, even I'm just going to say maybe revenue wise, we can kind of figure out. So all stuff we want to jump into and explore with this effort. As far as frequency changes, just want to, I guess, update everyone. The reductions we're doing are just basically late night and weekends, and they are not related to funding. That is because we are recruiting operators. We had quite a few that left, and we were behind in our classes, so we're catching up right now in terms of bringing in additional operators. So that's not budget related, and we will have all the service reductions that we're doing that are minimal up by, the goal is May. So those are to come back. And then all of the changes that happened in 2018 with the polls, they are mostly in existence. That is, I think you and I had kind of talked the other day, Amy, was that it's the time to look at them again. We haven't really changed very much, except for we do have stops at the transfer hub today. But yeah, we want to look at all of this stuff as part of this effort. I like the idea of updating. We did update CVTA finance on kind of the outlook of the projections. And that was work done with Scudder and team as well. So we can provide that same update to this group as well.
Thank you, Adrian. Any other comments? Very well. Naomi, you have a question.
Yeah, I guess I'll just ask just because there is this perception and I keep hearing people talking about it at VDOT and so forth. So is fare free impacting the ability to provide service?
No, those are not connect as far as the reductions that we will be putting in place soon.
Or yeah, I guess reductions in frequency at times and reductions in service is that's not causing an impact being fare free.
No, I know that I'm saying the main impact is fare free or people just using the system more. They can kind of ride just as often as they need to. We've seen it, but it has not impacted frequencies. We do have we have the articulated vehicles that we're trying to put out for the polls. We still have capacity issues on those. And we have 8 more that are coming this spring. I will note that there's because of just the topography of Richmond and those particular vehicles being a different model, we have had issues of them docking at the stations. That's why they have not been seen yet. But we are hoping to overcome those, hopefully the next couple of weeks and get those out there. But no, the zero fare has not impacted the frequency concerns.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into item 15. Thank you for your presentation. We'll look at the pathways to the future, the Transportation 2050 updates from Dorian Allen.
Good morning, Madam Chair and TAG members. Let me share my screen here, please. Thank you again for your time today. I'll be giving an update on the 2050 LRTP. So the transportation planning cycle begins with a high-level identification of issues and solutions. We then prioritize these solutions based on their effectiveness in addressing identified needs. We then fund the projects, authorize projects, implement the projects, and monitor and evaluate the outcomes. As you can see in red, these areas represent the current phases of the LRTP process, where we prioritize projects from an exhaustive list of solutions to regional transportation efficiencies by measuring their effectiveness in addressing regional vision goals and objectives. Simultaneously, we're developing a constrained plan in which projects are programmed and funded with projected revenues from DRPT, VDOT, and GRTC. So how does this coincide with the LRTP process flow? The process starts with the socioeconomic data development of the base year 2050. This was a 2-year process that was adopted by our policy board in September of 2023. The second phase of this process is the scenario analysis, in which we look at multiple scenarios based on a myriad of assumptions, population growth trends, and spatial distribution of this population. The third phase is the strategic direction, in which we develop the vision, guiding principles, goals, and objectives, and strategies for the plan, which we have completed. The next phase is the transportation needs assessment. This is a comprehensive analysis used to identify current and future transportation requirements. Within this process, we look at areas of safety, congestion, accessibility, and infrastructure, among other transportation efficiencies. The next phase of the plan is the universe of projects, which we will be discussing in depth later on in the presentation. This was a several-month-long process that started almost immediately after the approval of the issues inventory, by the policy board in October. Once we had the universal projects finalized, we prioritize these projects. Then we evaluate the plan. Then finally, the plan comes to adoption by the RRTPO policy board. The adoption date is scheduled for September of 2026. So we've completed the strategic direction through agreements on vision, goals, and objectives and performance measures. We've identified regional transportation issues and developed the region's needs assessment. We've developed the region's project inclusion guidelines, which leads into the creation of the universal projects. The universal projects was accepted by the advisory work group during this December 3rd meeting, which we will discuss later on as well. And now we're in the project prioritization and implementation process, which is happening parallel to the constraint plan development. So Plan RVA staff provided advisory work group, locality and agency staff with the issues inventory spreadsheet and story map. The issues themselves were a combination of our existing conditions analysis, various studies and plans, and public engagement feedback. The issues were mapped to the LRTP network, which consists of over 30,000 lanes and consists only of roads classified as arterial and above. The needs or solution to these issues were derived from the quarter level analysis, or came from the aforementioned studies and plans and advisory work group feedback. After this was completed, the universal projects was the next progression of the LRTP planning inventory. And this was a compilation of the tangible solutions to the regional issues that were spelled out within the issues inventory. This moves us from what are the problems and needs to what are the potential solutions. For this section, we asked project champions to give us the projects that best coincide with their understanding of how to address the issues spelled out within the inventory that align with the LRTP vision goals and objectives. These projects were included in the local capital improvement programs, STAR studies, small area plans, and internal repositories of projects from project champions. And this was approved by the advisory work group in December of 2025. Oh, so from the universal projects, we made a few revisions. We'll go over that briefly. Some cost revisions, particularly the Powhite Parkway extension. We added some projects within the universal projects, mainly around in or around 288. We also included a Route 10 project and then a transfer center along Willow Lawn. We also did some duplicate and overlapping project removal from the inventory as well. Excuse me. So here we have a culmination of all projects within the universal projects. It's broken down by the number of projects, project cost, and the project type. We have a total of 197 projects, which equal up to $9.2 billion. The vast majority being highway projects at 139 projects, equaling up to about $6.6 billion. So what we've done with these two pieces of information is it effectively created a feedback loop between Plan RVA and the project champions. By first gathering the technical information regarding transportation efficiencies and those proposed solutions from planners and studies. The draft lists were then presented to stakeholders, providing the on the ground context that we may have missed. So we want to understand from those project champions, did we have the issues right? Did we have the projects right? The lists are then looped back for revisions. So as you saw within the universal projects, the solutions are scaled, removed, or prioritized based on feasibility. And then we confirm the refined list. We make sure that this list still addresses the original deficiencies while staying within the long-term vision. So what's next? So we're going through the universal project scoring and prioritization. This provides the nexus between regional goals and performance measures. The performance measures themselves quantify progress towards reaching regional goals of safety, sustainability, reliability, and resiliency. Within that, we have 12 regional performance measures by goal category. This includes the rate and frequency of fatal and serious injury crashes, access to jobs and services, VMT per capita reduction, air quality, impact to natural and cultural resources, person throughput, person hours of delay, freight throughput, network redundancy, and security. We discussed the methodology in depth for scoring each performance measure in the methodology scorecard. So what do we hear from the advisory work group? We heard concerns regarding safety scoring and should it be higher to reflect Vision Zero initiatives. We agreed that the safety is of utmost concern, and when we look back at the scorecard, even though originally safety was weighted at 20%, the performance measure of seriously injured or fatal crashes had been the highest point total. So that was still reflected within the prioritization of the project. We heard concerns regarding impacts to natural and cultural resources. How do we ensure that projects needed for resiliency do not get punished for impacting resources? We take this into account. We take the mitigation factors into account in terms of net positive or net negative to surrounding resources to ensure that projects aren't negatively impacted. We also receive requests for further explanation on air pollutant standards, what is needed and what is not. We will take this opportunity to discuss more about the history of air pollutant standards in the region to provide a much greater detail of the current methodology. We heard concerns about the adherence to smart scale performance measures. Our goal is to mirror our methodology as closely as possible to smart scale while adhering to the Richmond Regional unique transportation needs, goals, and objectives. We will take the opportunity to flesh out our approach a little more within the methodology as well. And we were also asked whether VDOT studies are being used as analytical tools within the methodology. We use the VDOT roadway network system geospatial system for crash location, the VDOT annual average daily traffic data, and then we also use VDOT's latest memo for crash weighting. So here's the new regional scorecard. I'd like to point you specifically to safety and reliability. Previously, the weights for those respectively were 20% and then 30%. We even that out by taking 5% from the reliability category and put that into the safety category as well. So as you can see, fatal and seriously injured crashes are still weighted the highest amongst all performance measures. To reiterate the point that safety will be highly prioritized within the methodology. So once we prioritize these projects based on their regional vision and goal adherence, we need to program these projects into a constrained plan. Historically, the constrained long-range plan has been developed using a single recommended plan, refined by localities and advisory work group members. In previous LRTPs, we focused on a cost benefit or strictly goal-oriented approach. However, with the introduction of scenario planning, we understand that our transportation needs and future developments are way more complex. So our approach has to reflect this complexity. So for the 2050 plan, we are developing multiple investment scenarios for future refinements by the public and the advisory work group. As you can see, we developed multiple investment scenarios. First, we have the business as usual scenario, which mirrors current funding patterns, 70% going towards highway and 30% going towards transit, active transportation, TDM, and rail. We have a mode shift scenario where we see a 50% increase in the funding for transit, active transportation, TDM, and rail. So this will have a cost breakdown of about 55% highway and then 45% transit, active transportation, TDM, and rail. We have a cost benefit scenario. This is the most cost-effective combination of projects regardless of mode. And then the benefit scenario, which looks at the biggest benefit impact on addressing regional goals. One of the main components of the constrained long-range plan is our public engagement. What we want to do is we want to present these individual scenarios to the public and ask them which scenario resonates with them the most, and what would you add, remove, or change about your preferred scenario package. So not only looking at the four packages as they are, but what would you like to refine within those packages as well. And then to the right, we present the information as such, which projects are included by project type, how do these projects support our regional goals, And then where are these projects located within the region? So this is a tentative timeline of the LRTP going forward over the next 6 months. We're nearing the model run results summary with performance measures. At the end of February, we want to have a comparative summary of the investment packages using the model-derived LRTP adopted performance measures and objectives. And by the May-June timeframe, we want to have our preferred scenario performance evaluation. So this is a comparative summary of the preferred investment package and performances in the different future land use scenarios using the model-derived LRTP adopted performance measures and objectives. And I know that was a lot, so I want to open the floor up to any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Dorian. Any questions? Yes, Miles, did you have your hand up?
No, the only thing I really wanted to add was we wanted to just get this on everyone's radar because we are planning to open the public review. It'll be toward the end of this month that we'll have those investment packages out and going out to the public. So once we have that, we're going to be sharing it with all of you, obviously, for input as well. But we would like your help in promoting that as broadly as possible so that we can get as much input and feedback from the broader community on these investment packages so we can make the best choice moving forward.
Thank you, Amy.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks so much. Miles, in terms of the public outreach, I know we talked about having the CTAC members take a more active role in promoting and working with Holly on that outreach effort. So how do you see that moving forward?
Yes, so we have been working with CTAC. So CTAC helped to develop the overall engagement strategy for the LRTP, and they have been helping to get the message out into the community at each of these events. So helping us to identify community events that we can be a part of. A lot of the strategy that we have been using for this LRTP, which is a bit of a shift from how we've done things in the past, was instead of setting up our own events and trying to get people to come, we have been going to existing events, whether it's a nonprofit meeting or it's a community organization or just a festival or fair. So we're trying to meet people where they are, and CTAC has been very helpful in helping to identify those, and they have been participating in going out to some of these events as well. But obviously, you all have contacts as well. So if you have anybody else that you think we need to be talking to, we'd love to hear it. Please share those with Dorian or with Holly so we can make sure that we're capturing those.
I might just have a quick follow-up. So Miles, it might be helpful to get a list of where you all are going so that, we can kind of build on that. I know my CTAC member is very engaged, but I'm not sure that there's a clear direction that I've heard on how he's going to be promoting this. So maybe I just need to have more conversation with my CTAC member, but also I think it would be just helpful to understand where are we getting this message out to.
Absolutely. We can get you the list of the organizations that we are trying to hit multiple times and the meetings that we're trying to get to multiple times throughout the cycle. Yeah. And then any sort of one-off events that we're planning to attend that we already know about. Okay. The other place you can also look is anything that's upcoming. We posted on the engage.planrva.org, which is our engagement portal. There's a project page for the LRTP. So anything that's upcoming gets posted on there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good to know where to look. All right, any other comments or questions of Dorian? All right, thank you so much for presenting that. Moving on to items. Yeah, moving on, we'll get an update from DRPT Wood Hudson.
Sure thing. Got a couple updates for you all today. First up is the 5303 applications are open, but are not due until May 1st. We are still awaiting apportionment tables from FTA, and we'll make those available to the MPOs as soon as we receive them. We're in the process of reviewing the FY27 grant applications. So as a heads up to Staff, if you have applied, and there's the potential that DRPT would be reaching out with questions and clarifications regarding any applications. An exciting announcement is I've been mentioning the Coordinated Human Service Mobility Plan now for a while at these meetings. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that's going live today and will be available on DRPT's website. We have both an interactive version and a PDF version of that plan, which is statewide, but has regional implications and regional information. Additionally, STIP development is going on, and a heads up mostly for the transit agencies that as we move into this new STIP, starting when it's approved in October, there's a transition period. As part of that, we circulated some emails with details around dates for freeze in terms of actions on the STIP and the TIPs. So we're encouraging all transit agencies to provide all federal fiscal year 2026 TIP actions to the MPOs no later than March. So those can be handled in advance of any freeze. Last item I have is our rail team is diligently working on laying the groundwork for the state rail plan, which is a requirement of the feds. And they're programming and targeting outreach starting in the spring of 2026. And I know the MPOs in the past have been very engaged in that process and provided a lot of good feedback. So stay tuned as they get things spun up and their consultants on board. There will be the opportunities for localities and the MPOs to engage in that process. Some of you might have been aware that we've had some updates in terms of positions here at DRPT. Just wanted to mention that our new director, Maria Zimmerman, is on board. And then we also have a new chief deputy director, and his name is Alan Fye. There's been a couple other positions change in DRPT. In addition, we are doing some recruitment right now. We have a position open in our Northern Virginia office for a program manager. We also have a TDM coordinator position in our Nova office, and we are currently recruiting a planner to join our team here in Richmond. Most of those positions are closing within the next week or so, but I wanted to give people the heads up to spread the word on those opportunities with DRPT. That's all I got today. Thanks, everybody. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Wood. Okay, job opportunities at DRPT. All right, so we'll go ahead and get an update from Corey Robinson at GRTC.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Just a few updates. One we kind of already touched on, but I want to reiterate some temporary service adjustments are going to go into place February 22nd. This is to improve reliability and reduce some last-minute trip cancellations. Routes were reviewed using route level time of day ridership data and different equity considerations and prioritizing consistent service. GRTC held a public meeting on February 9th to discuss these changes, which have been approved by our board of directors. Like many transit systems nationwide, GRTC continues to face some operator workforce shortages, which can result in a lot of last-minute missed trips. As new operators are hired and trained, we're going to continually add in trips as we are able to. Meanwhile, exciting news for GRTC's permanent downtown transfer hub. The project moved closer to reality as Richmond City Council approved transferring the former public safety building to the city's EDA. The 10-bay transfer hub will serve as a central connection point for the North-South BRT and downtown routes, and include a mixed-use overbuild. A request for proposals is expected by summer of 2026, with developer selection by the end of this year. During the last month's snow and ice, During the last month's snow and ice event, GRTC made the difficult decision to cancel service on 2 of those days due to unsafe roads, bus stops, and access points. Service gradually returned with care, link, and fixed route service operating reduced snow routes and detours. The response highlighted an extraordinary effort of employees across operations, maintenance, capital improvement, facilities, dispatch, and just overall administration. Their teamwork and commitment ensured service was restored safely and responsibly. And finally, GRTC is excited to announce the appointment of May Barbosa as the new TAP coordinator. This is a much needed position funded in part by a $25,000 grant from the Community Foundation, which will help sustain our open access network for riders across Central Virginia. And that wraps up my agency update. I'm happy to field any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Corey. Welcome to your new coordinator. All right, any questions of Corey? If not, we'll get an update from John O'Keefe from Ride Finders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ride Finders has been busy last month doing a lot of outreach within the community. We conducted outreach visits to a lot of the extended stay hotels along the Route 10 corridor and met with several of the property managers and distributed our information on our accountant to change it in the Tri-Cities area and providing them with the campaign materials and leaving them at each of those locations. We were also in attendance at the Hanover County Chamber of Commerce Air Park Social to connect with regional employers and partners. We also reached out and attended the DMV job fair and distributed information there about our programs and services, and actually have a meeting with them again today. We're coordinating with the Department of Forensic Sciences to identify potential dates for a spring employee benefits fair at their new location in Hanover County. For some of you who may not know, they left or are in the process of a new facility in Hanover County on 301 by the VDOT office. So that's not served by transit. So working with them, as well as still continuing to work with VDOT on van pool opportunities there. Had a real good meeting last month with the Lowe's Distribution Center about our programs and services. Continuing to work on with them, options and van pools there. We're working with the Defense Supply Center. We had asked them about opportunities to be on site there, but they generally don't allow people on site or on that installation sometimes. So we provided them with a one pager that was being sent out to all of the employees. And then last but not least, we're continuing our collaboration with GRTC's procurement department on the RFQ we had out that is now closed for more van pool vendors. And with that, Madam Chair, that's the end of my agency report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you, John.
Yes, ma'am.
If there aren't any questions for John, we'll move on to an update from VDOT from Miss Naomi Smith.
Great. So a little shorter this time. The Commonwealth Transportation Board is meeting today. So the update that we have in the packet is similar to the last one you've heard. So I'll leave that one be. But what I will know is today they are discussing with the at-large members how the at-large members might want to contribute their funds to transportation alternative projects. So that should be a conversation that's happening this afternoon with the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Some internal updates, Smart Scale. We're all ready for it. We're talking about it today. Applications open March 2nd. That's a big thing to be ready for. Pre-applications open and applications are due April 1st at 5 p.m. So if you need anything, reach out to me. I'm the point of contact for the district. I can help you. I can help get questions answered. So please contact me. And then let's see, we got some events happening, some public hearings and public information opportunities and feedback opportunities. So through truck traffic restriction, Parkside Village subdivision in Goochland County. There's an opportunity for you to provide your feedback on that project, February 10th through March 14th. So that is open. So that is our public notice that we're giving to see how people want to contribute feedback to some restrictions on through traffic on some specific routes. We also have a public meeting happening related to hard surfacing 1.4 miles of Clark Road in New Kent. That's happening Monday, March 9th at 6 p.m. at 12007 Courthouse Circle in New Kent. So you can come out and find more information about that project at that time. And then a big training we have, Smart Scale Round 7 pre-application training. So that is February 24th from 2 to 4 p.m. So if you haven't signed up, check that out, sign up, and figure out how to best use the portal to get your application submitted. Let me know if you all have any questions.
Thank you, Naomi. Any questions for VDOT? If not, we'll take, of course, take a look at the Plan RVA newsletter, Better Together Connector. We'll entertain any comments from the TAC members at this time. Anyone like to make any comments? Mr. Bushing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one update from our side that wasn't able to be included in the agenda just because it came out afterwards. But next Wednesday, the 25th, is our on-site visit for our federal certification review. So that's basically our opportunity to sit down with FTA and Federal Highways, talk about how the program is working, talk about our coordination with Tri-Cities, with our localities and our state partners and transit operators, and basically review and make sure we're doing everything that we need to for the program. That starts at 8:30. You all do not have to attend. However, there is a 5 o'clock to 6:30 in the evening sort of public review where anyone can come and give comments and kind of discuss how the program's operating. So we would encourage you, if you're interested, to make time for that in the evening. So again, that's 5 to 6:30 on next Wednesday, the 25th.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any other TAC member comments? Seeing none, our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 10th at 9 a.m. or immediately after an ICG meeting. There's no other comments, and we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.